Well, hello everyone. Welcome to another live stream on History Fight Podcast. And today I'm joined by my Greek teacher, Stephen Nelson. And I'd like to tell everybody real quick about his website, Cross Bible. And I also have his YouTube channel tagged in the description below, so you can go over there, check out his YouTube channel, subscribe to his YouTube channel, Cross Bible. And also the link to his website is in the description below as well. And I'll also have all of this in the pinned comment after the live stream as well. So, Stephen, thank you for joining me today. And can you show everybody what the website looks like? Can I take us through a tour?
Yeah, thanks for having me. Thanks for the nice intro. Before I show anything, I should probably preface it by just explaining that this is the beta version that we just launched in the beginning of October. So I am the founder of Cross Bible, and it's basically a sort of Swiss Army knife Bible study prototype that I've been working on for a little over a decade, about as long as I've been studying biblical Greek and getting really deep into biblical studies. I've been interested in the Bible my whole life, but this is just sort of a labor of love that eventually it got to the point where I felt like it was good enough for prime time and I could release it to the world. But for a long time, I just sort of tinkered with it on my own. And, we've launched with an initial collection of 20 Bibles in the public domain that I'm going to show. And then we've added about 10 since we launched of Bibles that I've scraped together from different sources just to get everything up and running. We recently got the New American Standard Bible from the Lockman Foundation. And we also recently got permission to offer the New International Version from Biblica. So we're really excited about that. I have some really great developers working on it. And also we'll, talk about the YouTube channel as well, because it's the Cross Bible YouTube. So Jacob and I have been friends for many years, probably almost as long as I've been working on Cross Bible. So congratulations on History Valley, and thanks for having me on.
Oh, thank you very much, Stephen. And also, congratulations to you too on the great work you're doing on your website, the permissions you've been granted recently. It's really good to hear. And so basically, what you're saying is that this website it's basically a new way to explore the scriptures. You have a bunch of different Bibles that people can use on the website, different translations they can access. They can compare, find verses. They can look at the English and the Greek and whatever. And so there's a lot of options, a lot of different things that they can do, use the website for, and it's like a new take on exploring these texts.
Yes, I'd say basically, depending on what kind of a Bible user you are and how familiar you are with the original languages and with textual criticism, which is a big focus of the site, and intertextuality, so cross references between the New Testament and the Old Testament, it's a big feature, and also synoptic studies. So I know you have an audience that is very much into the synoptic problem. I got a poster back there, which is my favorite illustration of the synoptic puzzle of all of the different parallels between Matthew, Mark, and Luke. And I'm really building a platform that's going to facilitate that kind of really deep Bible study. But if you're just getting into it, I want it to be really beginner friendly. And if you take a look at like the entire product roadmap that I'm going to describe today, what I have now is kind of like scratching the surface. It's about like 10 to 20% of what it's going to be. With time, as I sort of continue to build the platform, gain support, it's 100% free, and we're crowdfunded. So people can just go subscribe on YouTube, follow us there. I do not have a Patreon page. It's just Cross Bible. So you go to Cross Bible, register for free. If you go to the billing section, we have a sort of de facto Patreon page there where people can support us in order to help sort of get this going on both YouTube and on the website, to fund the development of these features, which at this point are sort of in the early concept phase, but I have a prototype and I have some mock-up and things that I'll discuss that I think are going to really like unlock the Bible for a lot of people that otherwise probably, share my frustration with the current ecosystem of Bible study tools that are out there. I don't know what your experience is like with the current stock of legacy Bible study tools out there, but I've spent many years bouncing around a lot between all the different websites, between the desktop software. They're all great, but there's not like one-stop shop that has all the tools that I need as a Bible student. And so I'm trying to build up this platform so that it just is that one-stop shop where you just don't need to go anywhere else. It's just all going to be there.
Right. What you're saying is you don't have to put up with the limitations that they all have. You can have all the tools you need in one website.
Yeah, I mean, they all have really good strengths. Like I'm a big fan, and I'm very grateful to a lot of the legacy platforms that are out there. And I'm a user of Logos Bible software and Accordance. I have them on my computer. I use them all the time. But my process tends to be bouncing back and forth because like this site has a great feature, this site has a great feature, this software has a great feature, and I end up just playing ping pong with like I got to look up the Greek over here, and then I got to pull up the comparison feature over here. And it's just exhausting. I had to run to my bookshelf, run back to my computer. This is eventually going to be just a one-stop shop, but very user-friendly and basic and kind of just a guided Bible study experience that's going to be like highly interactive because I'm building it all on like the latest sort of cutting edge technology.
All right. So I'm going to go ahead and get it up on the screen.
Yeah. So to start the experience, this is obviously, I'll accept the cookie consent right here. This helps us track the user experience if you do accept the cookie consent, because we're currently trying to put together some analytics just to kind of figure out what the most popular Bible versions are on the platform, right? We're going to have our own sort of leaderboard ranking the different Bible versions and help customize the experience by tracking everybody's movement through the Bible, see how often people are comparing versions and see which versions they're comparing and see what the appetite is for different Bible versions. If you go first, let's start by registering, right? So the registration page is pretty straightforward. I'm already registered. So again, this is 100% free. It just gives you a kind of profile with a dashboard that at this point doesn't unlock any features, but it will. So I do encourage everybody to please register if you can, and it would just sort of help boost the numbers, even though it's just totally voluntary. And once you're registered, you get like your little profile. The billing page is where we basically have, this is our de facto Patreon page. So if you go to billing, you can input payment and you could sign up for like, $5 a month, whatever you can afford. And if not, this again, your dashboard is going to be available for free. The dashboard is going to have your notes. So when you take notes on a verse, it's going to persist into your sessions when you're signed in. You're going to be able to highlight verses, and your highlights will be here on the dashboard. So right now, this is just kind of a placeholder. So really, the Bible reader is the core feature. So what you're seeing now is our newly acquired and integrated text of the NASB, so New American Standard Bible. This is really like, for me, I don't know, what Bibles are popular among your users, but the NASB was the Bible I used in high school. It's a very good, very like on the literal scale of the translation spectrum, right? Between like literal and paraphrase. So I genuinely, this isn't just because they gave me the rights to their Bible and therefore I'm a fan. I've always been a fan of the NASB, especially if you're learning the biblical languages. It's helpful to align the NASB against one of the original languages. So if you wanted to do that, in this case, I would hit this button to compare another Bible version, and it would bring up probably, let's see what it brings up. So it brings up the ASV. So now I'm basically going from the newer generation of Bibles, which is the New American Standard, to its predecessor, the ASV, right? So I could see, which I could see what improvements have been made from the source text. If I want the ASV to go on the left and I want the NASB to go on the right, I can simply click on one of these numbers here and it'll switch, right? So whatever verse number you click on, it's going to make that verse the verse that's highlighted, and it's going to put it over on the left. And this actually, like if you, for example, Jacob, wanted to post something on Facebook to make a point about Genesis 1:4, the URL that you get in this view is going to link to this exact comparison that you build for Genesis 1:4. So let's take you out of the American Standard Version. We have our initial collection of English Bibles here. I hope can you see the popover menu? Sometimes it doesn't show it on stream. Can you see the Bible
where
selector
am I
menu?
supposed to be seeing it?
Well, okay. So if I click on American Standard, okay. So
okay, go ahead, click on it.
Do you see it?
No, I do not.
Okay, well, sometimes there are limitations with what screen capture software will capture. So if you go onto here, just imagine you're seeing the book selector menu. I'll have to take I produce content all the time where I actually record my screen. This StreamYard isn't going to support this. But I have the American Standard. I have the Berean Study Bible, which is a recent Bible translation that was released into the public domain. And I have several historical Bibles. So I have Brenton's English Septuagint. So like I can pull up the Septuagint here. Boom. So it will just automatically swap out the text. So now you have the American Standard on the left, Brenton's English Septuagint on the right. And I have a couple of King James Bibles. I got the 1611, the 1769, Tyndale Webster, and Weymouth New Testament. Just to start, we're working on the World English Bible, and like I said, we just got the NIV, so the NIV will be up there soon. We have a very large collection of Greek Bibles. So I do have, for example, Ralph's 1935 Septuagint. So if you wanted to compare the New American Standard to Ralph's Septuagint, you have that here. Or if you wanted to compare Brenton's Greek Septuagint to Ralph's Septuagint to see whatever minor differences there may be. Genesis probably doesn't have that many. You can do that here. And then another cool thing. So I support up to 4 comparisons, and that was by choice because I just didn't want to. There are websites that let you compare like 5, 6, 7, parallel columns. I think that's just a little too busy for me. So here we have, like, for example, the ASV popped up here on the right. Now, what if I want my English Bible on the right and I want like a couple of Greek versions on the left? Or sorry, the other way around. So I want to move this to the left. I hit the verse number. It popped over here. Now, one thing that I really wanted to get out of the gate for this beta version is a button here that lets you switch between this vertical view and horizontal view. So here you can compare line by line in a horizontal view. You can really hone in on the differences in individual words, or like, let's say if you wanted to compare the ASV to the King James and then have a Septuagint there. There are really no other Bible resources that I'm aware of, at least that are like browser based online, that give you this kind of selection. And obviously, of course, I can plug in the Westminster Leningrad Codex, so I could see the English and the Hebrew and the Greek all together. If I want, I can flip back to the vertical view here. So that's the basic gist of the Bible reader feature, the Bible comparison feature. I can have up to 4 columns, and then those columns can become rows. I wish I could show off the selector feature, but I have some foreign languages right now. So I have a Korean Bible, a French Bible. I have an old Reina Valera Spanish Bible from 1909. I have a Russian version and a Ukrainian version, a Latin Vulgate, and I have a modern Greek Bible as well, called Vamas, which is an old Katharevousa translation into very literal, formal, modern Greek. So that's what I'm working with currently. What do you think so far?
Yeah, I think it's simply amazing. It's so many options. It's I also think that it's it's useful for those that decide that they want to learn Greek. They can at least compare the Greek to the English, so it can play a part in learning that. So
Well, and also it's because when
yeah.
you start learning Greek, I mean, I can speaking from experience, starting this 10 years ago, most people want to learn Greek because they want to read the Bible in the original, quote unquote. But then you start to figure out that, well, the idea of an original is kind of a fleeting thing because there are so many different versions of the Bible, right? There's so many different editions, critical editions, all these different manuscripts, all say different things. And you kind of have to roll up your sleeves and get into textual criticism, which is what I did. And the process of studying textual criticism led me to build this timeline of the Bible feature. So that's this other thing that beyond just reading the Bible, you can explore this sort of interactive timeline that initially was just this like dinky Excel spreadsheet that I made, just trying to sort of color code things and put them out, like lay them out chronologically in a way that made more sense than the textual apparatus with all of these like symbols and all of these
So
code names that you have to memorize.
so basically, it's like a timeline of the formation of the Bible, manuscript
Exactly.
families, etc.
Exactly. Yeah.
I see.
And I would preface this by saying some people who are extremely astute in textual criticism might note right off the bat when they log in here that you're going to see New Testament text types, and you're also going to see Old Testament text types, right? So you're going to see the Hebrew Masoretic text, the Septuagint, the Samaritan Pentateuch. That's all pretty standard fare. But what you'll note here is that New Testament textual critics who adhere to the coherence-based genealogical method have largely abandoned the traditional categorization of manuscripts into text types, quote unquote, as presented in this timeline, preferring instead to group textual variants into clusters. So the thing that is interesting about this timeline is that this is really a representation of the scholarly tradition that gave us the Bible that we have today. It's not necessarily going to play a huge role in the future of textual criticism of the Bible. This is actually, in the view of many, an obsolete system. And the Editio Critica Maior is the new text critical version of the New Testament. And it actually is not, it is no longer factoring in these categorizations of ancient manuscripts into its reconstruction of the New Testament, which is making leaps and bounds with technology. But unless you understand how these groupings and how this categorization works, at least historically in the field, you really just can't read any of the literature on the topic. Like Bruce Metzger's text of the New Testament isn't going to make sense to you unless you are well versed in sort of the old school way of doing textual criticism. But it's interesting to note that this is actually gonna kind of going out the window. So in the future, we may update this to reflect the coherence-based genealogical method, the CBGM. But for now, this is just sort of our representation of the tradition of the last 5 centuries, basically.
So we got a question to chat from Jesus Tales. Thank you for your super chat, Jesus Tales. Can I compare the Greek text of 1 Kings 19 to the Greek of Exodus 24 using the Cross Bible?
1 Kings 19. All right, what were the versions?
He's asking if he can compare the Greek of 1 Kings 19 to the Greek of Exodus 24.
1 Kings 19 Greek to Exodus 24. Oh no. So the whole point of Cross Bible is to compare. So like, let's say we're going to compare Ralph's Septuagint to the to Brenton's Septuagint, and then we can also add in here Brenton's English, right? So yeah, you can get within 1 Kings 19, you're going verse by verse, right? And you can flip it and compare it this way. The idea here is basically, you know, how did this version feed into this version? Are there any differences? And how did it end up in Brenton's translation? Or how did it end up in the, you know, how did this look in the King James, right? You're comparing verse to verse. You're comparing apples to apples. What I am not building in here is a way to like add additional panels that that compare like completely different verses. So I think that's what the question is, right? If
Yeah,
you can
yeah,
take,
because
you can just put different books on the layout, and you know, you might be able to do that in Bible software with just like lots of panes. I'm just trying to keep this a lot simpler because really I want you to, you know, to focus your attention on the difference between different versions of the same text.
so
So we'll go back to the timeline. I can bounce around.
okay,
The other features, I guess, before we get really deep into the timeline, I have a
sure.
study resources page. So this is just sort of a long period of my building up my Amazon wish list. Like I own a lot of these books and read a lot of these books. Some of these books are just still on my wish list, but I have, you know, English Bibles. I have biblical studies books. These are personal recommendations. I don't necessarily endorse every single book that's on here. You know, Cross Bible as an organization doesn't necessarily endorse any of these books, but I think it's a pretty handy list that's sort of divided and categorized if you want resources for learning Greek, Hebrew language, textual criticism. These are all Amazon affiliate links. So, you know, I get a little kickback on some of these purchases. And then also I have a blog page, which is linked to my YouTube channel. So right now I have a series that I highly encourage everybody to watch that starts out with a intro to Cross Bible and a few interesting sort of textual variant discussions and textual criticism primer. Then I get into the Greek Old Testament here. And people have two options. They can watch the video here on my blog. They can obviously skip to YouTube, and please like and subscribe. And you can actually read the transcripts of my videos as a blog. So some people prefer to read, some people prefer to like sort of have the ability to scroll and highlight and you know, whatever. This is all built as sort of a blog companion to the YouTube videos. So I have history of the Greek Old Testament, the Septuagint. I have the history of the King James Bible and the Textus Receptus, the history of the critical text and modern textual criticism, and history of Greek and Hebrew lexicography, which is my most recent 1 hour installment in this documentary series. And then I also have a store, so I'm selling prints like posters of the Bible timeline for people who actually want a physical copy of it. And then I have a Greek pronunciation poster with sort of mapping out the sounds and stuff like that. So that's the current, you know, I'm building a Greek module where people are going to be able to go and sort of learn Greek at their own pace using my own system. But obviously, as you know, since you are my Greek student, I also do you know, one-on-one privates for anybody who is interested. They can go to the homepage, and if you go all the way to the bottom, there is a contact form where you can inquire about getting on the schedule for Greek lessons if you're interested in that.
So we have a question from Fiction Mission. Any non-canonical comparisons?
Yeah. So the sources of the original 20, now 30, I think 33 is what I'm at right now, if I'm not mistaken. The sources that I got for all of these Bibles are all seemingly Protestant. So GitHub repositories, there's a list of the different resources that provide these texts in different formats that I can adapt and import into my database. And unfortunately, the collections of Bibles like Brenton's Septuagint, which really should have the apocryphal books in it, and the Deuterocanonical books, the, you know, Susanna, Bell and the Dragon, longer Greek additions to Daniel and things like that, they have been taken out. And I didn't do that. That wasn't my intent. But that's just the source files came like that. I'm in negotiations with the organization that licenses out the Catholic Bibles and they have insisted that they will not allow me to put the Catholic Bible, any version of the Catholic Bible, onto Cross Bible without including the Deuterocanon, which I assured them that no, we will include those books as soon as I can get access to them, and we're actively negotiating with the Bible publishers that have that text, that are going to gladly provide it as long as we, assure them that it's going to be available in the book selector menu. So right now in the book selector menu, you got, Old Testament, New Testament. Eventually there will be a block there for the Apocrypha Deuterocanonical books for comparison. Ideally, I think the first versions that'll be available for comparison will be those Catholic Bibles they're going to give me the XML files that I'm going to be able to parse and get online. And then I'm also currently in talks with the German Bible Society to get the critical editions of the Greek and Hebrew text up here, and that Greek text also includes the Deuterocanonical books. So yes, very much I'm working towards getting those included, because I have editions of the Bible that are simply incomplete without them. So maybe I'm assuming there's going to be a contingent of users who's going to be very interested in those books, and maybe some who will not even want to use Cross Bible if I offer them. So it's it's always a toss up, but yeah, they belong there.
So can they also compare, like going back to the manuscript families, can any visitors to your website also compare different manuscript traditions? Like they can get a pretty good idea of, like, okay, I can see some examples of what this text type over here says and what this text type over here looks like. Is there anything like that
Well, basically
going on yet?
Let's go from the beginning, right? So here I have just the list of books, right? I got the New Testament canon somewhere in the 1st century. The note here is that the timeline does not attempt to assign any dates of the original compositions to these biblical books, right? So the fact that I have Revelation here on the right and the pastoral epistles here on the left doesn't necessarily mean that I'm dating or assuming a date of Revelation after the pastoral epistles, right? This is just a block to show you, okay, these are this is the grouping of the New Testament text, right? So you got Pauline epistles over here, you got pastoral epistles, anonymous, Hebrews, Revelation, and then the Catholic epistles and the Gospels in a sort of layout like this. So the idea here is that in the 2nd century AD, you have this split of the text types that happened, right, in history. So originally there would have been only one kind of text, but when it got copied over the course of the first few centuries, some errors and variations slipped in that ended up constituting these different families, at least in the traditional understanding of textual criticism. So there was a branch of the Western text, which some textual critics historically have divided into 2 groups: the group that would be the European group, and then the African group, North Africa, Carthage. And then so I've kind of branched off into those 2 different traditions of the Western text that ultimately ended up having a lot of Latin manuscripts. There's some Greek mixed in here. All of these little buttons here. So like, let's say you want to investigate Codex Bezae, right? You have the sort of the code abbreviation, you have the name. I have a little information panel here that you can open up and read about it, right? Or if you want to read about this Latin manuscript that's in the, dated to the exact same period. I think by this point, all of these manuscripts have this information filled in. So if you just want to explore the timeline and sort of see, go through the entire Western text, you can learn a lot about these manuscripts here. What you can't do is, investigate the text. I'm not that advanced yet, but eventually, yeah, maybe I'll actually have the text of all these manuscripts in Cross Bible years from now. For now, it's just sort of like a platform for learning more about it. Obviously, you can see Jerome's Vulgate here formatted in gray because we don't have it. A lot of people don't realize that. Jerome improved on the old Latin versions, and we have Vulgate manuscripts, like this codex is considered like prime Vulgate manuscript, but we don't know exactly how closely they would have matched to Jerome's original Vulgate if we had it. One thing that trips people up, and this is sort of a limitation of the platform, because I use an embedding from a platform called Lucidchart to produce this diagram. If you go in and investigate the tradition, like in the Western text, you have to press escape to get out of it. And sometimes people kind of get confused because they don't think to press escape, and I don't have any other button to do that. So, so this would have been the Western text, and then this is the Alexandrian text that was really, like, you can see these are the oldest like group of manuscripts, and they mostly consist of papyrus fragments. So like you have P75, P18, P4, P32. There are many, many, many more than are represented on this timeline. The timeline is just sort of my selection of what I have determined to be some of the earliest and most important. If there's one that somebody mentions, like, hey, you're missing, P whatever, I can always drop it in there. This is a work in progress, and this is like, there are still some bugs and some things that some kinks I need to iron out. But again, just come in, click on these info panels, take a look, read about like the contents of the manuscript and sort of, information that I've gathered from different resources to kind of educate yourself. And you can see some of like super early ones, right? Like the P90, Unseal 10189, P64, P67, the Magdalene papyri. And then, of course, here you have the big Unseal codices, Sinaiticus Vaticanus and Alexandrinus here, that include the Old Testament in Greek. The color coding is pretty intuitive. I think that it's, Western is green, Alexandrian's blue. The Byzantine text, which is, a little bit later, you can see, is red. And then Byzantine Alexandrian mix is purple, and then the Caesarean text type, which a lot of people cast out over the categorization of. There are some manuscripts that have traditionally been labeled as a mixture of Byzantine and Caesarean, and those I have here in orange. So again, you can just come in, you can look at family 1424 and the fair group and the lake group, and go in and just sort of explore, read. Just remember that, like, if you're in the yellow group, you're looking at the Caesarean manuscripts, you want to jump over here and look at this Byzantine manuscript, just press escape. It's a little annoying, but that's what I'm working with. And then I also have the eclectic and unknown text types that no textual critics have been able to confidently pin down to a specific group, just because they have a blend of textual features. Washingtonianus is one of the best examples of that just nobody's really been able to pin down into a specific group. So they're included up here. So if you go through the timeline, and it's pretty easy, like, drag and drop, and, I'm making everybody dizzy, I'm sure, but you can zoom in, zoom out, and just keep in mind what column you're in, sort of what century you're in. Here you're in the 6th century, 7th, 8th. And then we start getting into, okay, here are some old English translations. Now you're getting closer and closer to modernity, where then you get into the traditions. And my YouTube videos go over this stuff in a lot of detail. So like, this is just, I'm giving you a crash course right now. But the Textus Receptus tradition here, these are all of the Greek, or at least most of that I know of the Greek printed editions of the Bible. So like right here, you can see starting in the 16th century, now you're in the printing age. Now you're in the age of Bibles that are actually on Cross Bible, so that when you're on Cross Bible and you see, okay, I have, I'm working on the Luther Bible, but I have Stephanus, I have Beza, I have Elzevir. When you look up these Bibles, a lot of people, like, they just see them on the menu. You can compare Stephanus to Elzevir, right? Well, if you want to hop over to the timeline, you can actually see sort of where they fit into this whole tradition, right? And then obviously Geneva Bible, Bishop's Bible, King James Bible, the English translations that are coming out of this Textus Receptus tradition that's super, super dominant in the 16th, 17th, and 18th centuries, until the revolution that happened in the 19th century here, modern critical editions of the Bible, which what I've attempted to represent here visually is the fact that the early critical editions of the Bible are color-coded blue, because they very much favored Codex Sinaiticus, Codex Vaticanus, what we traditionally consider to be the Alexandrian text type even though it's a problematic term. And then I have Tregelles, I have Tischendorf, and I say I mean Cross Bible, right? Cross Bible has Tregelles, Tischendorf. We have Westcott, Hort. So you can compare these three versions, which are very similar, and then compare that to Nestle's 1904 initial, like the pilot version of the critical text, that effectively took Westcott, Hort, and Tischendorf and merged them together and just sort of pick between the variants that were documented in those two critical editions, with the addition of von Soden and Weiss's Greek New Testaments as sort of a tiebreaker between those. And then Weymouth's Greek New Testament also made its way into Nestle's original versions, which have just been updated all the way through to what we have now, which is, you know, the Nestle Aland 28 and the UBS 5 editions, and the SBL Greek New Testament. So I have the SBL Greek New Testament. It's in the public domain. I do not yet have the Nestle Aland or UBS editions because those belong to the German Bible Society, and I'm working on that. And then, of course, the Editio Critica Maior, which is basically the future of the New Testament, which is not yet finished. They recently released Revelation. They have Acts and Mark. They're getting there. I think 2030 or something is their deadline to complete the entire New Testament, which means that all of the English Bibles down in this tradition right here, right? So the ASV, the NASB, all of these are eventually going to be updated over here from the new Editio Critica Maior Bibles that are going to be developed by the sort of latest advent of textual criticism, which is largely just abandoning the whole idea of these text type categorizations. What do you think?
So we do have a question.
Yep.
Yeah. I think it makes sense, and I think it's like it looks complicated at first, but somebody just takes a quick second to look at it. It's a lot easy. It's a lot easier to follow than it might appear, if that makes sense. If you get what I'm.
Well, I think if people realize that they have this button here to open up the information panel, and they know that they need to push escape to get out of it, it's really built to just kind of explore around. I mean, I can't even tell you like how many hours I put into the initial layout in, you know, as a spreadsheet, and then transferring it over here and compiling all the notes. I mean, this is you know, this is a big like legacy, you know, project for me, and it's always a work in progress. I can tell from my analytics that most people who are going to Cross Bible are using the Bible Reader feature. Look like maybe a quarter of them are bouncing over to the timeline and exploring it. But my goal really is to produce more and more YouTube content that features this timeline and explains. It's not explaining to people how to use the timeline per se. It's explaining these concepts of like, what is the Textus Receptus, right? Like, because as you can see, the Textus Receptus is not like one thing, right? It's not just like, oh, Erasmus made it. No, it's like, it's a tradition. Like this whole thing constitutes the Textus Receptus. At least, you know, it culminates with the Elsevier Bible, but there are later, you know, like there's Scrivener's Textus Receptus, like centuries later, right? So this is all stuff that for me, because I didn't, you know, my background, by the way, I didn't mention this, my background is in Russian, right? Like I'm a Russian scholar, like sorry, that's an exaggeration. I have a bachelor's degree in Russian. I lived in Russia. I'm much better at Russian than I am at any other of my foreign languages. So I'm just a language nerd. I speak Spanish. I've dabbled in French for a while, and then, you know, ancient Greek and modern Greek have been a passion of mine for the last 10 years. That led me to this. But because I didn't have the advantage of like going to a seminary or getting a PhD and getting really formal training in Greek, I had to kind of draw from my experience with language learning and teach it myself and teach it to myself as an autodidact. And this stuff was really mystifying for me, like to sort of, you know, like I read I have a really big collection of books that are all on that, on the study resources page on textual criticism. I'm a huge enthusiast of it. I really love it. I think it's really, really fascinating how scholars reconstruct the Bible. but I just had to make a roadmap for myself. And then eventually I realized, well, there have to be other people who also need a roadmap like this, right? Who want to be able to, like, by the way, you can go in here and search for, Textus Receptus or whatever, like if you wanted to search for Sinaiticus, right? Boom, like you type ahead and it will pull it up, or like Beze, right? Boom. So like I just wish this thing existed 10 years ago when I started, because it was a really painful process of like, like navigating biblical studies is hard enough, right? But navigating textual criticism, like, forget it. It's just I don't know what your experience has been with it, trying to make sense of different versions of the Bible. But if this existed 10 years ago, obviously I wouldn't have built it, but it would have made life a lot easier. So I'm hoping to make other people's lives a lot easier who might be getting into this for the first time and just don't know where to start, right? And another cool thing about this is you can click here and click here. That's what all these like little hand symbols are pointing at. I'll find a better way to illustrate this. You can simplify it, right? Like if you wanted, for example, to imagine what the landscape would have been like if you were a 17th century, textual critic. Like if you're Erasmus and you're compiling the Bible, well, you're not going to know about all of these Alexandrian manuscripts because most of them were discovered very late, right? So if you click that, you kind of get to more of a picture of like, okay, in the early printing age, all that the textual critics had, like, and I consider Erasmus to be like basically one of the original sort of textual critics of his day, who just had access to these manuscripts along these red lines, right? The Textus Receptus, manuscripts used by Erasmus. These point to the ones that he had, right? He had manuscript 4, minuscule 4, minuscule 2, minuscule 5. He had 2814, 2815. So from his perspective in his day, not knowing about the rest of the, this tree, like not having access just geographically, not being able to go and get his hands on these manuscripts, he did a pretty decent job. He gets a lot of flack nowadays from scholars who are like, oh, he only had a handful of manuscripts and he didn't have complete Greek text. But like, I mean, you can't fault him for it. He did a pretty decent job, in my opinion. But that's the tradition that we ended up with. It's just that scholarship, took a hard right turn and leaned really hard into the Alexandrian tradition once they discovered Sinaiticus and Vaticanus, because they were drooling over the age and sort of apparent superiority of that textual tradition. But nowadays, the pendulum seems to be swinging a little bit back towards the Byzantine text in the Editio Critica Maior. If you read up on sort of the newest techniques of textual criticism, you'll find that they actually take the Byzantine text a lot more seriously than they did early on, especially in like the 19th century, when there was this like major shift towards like anti-Byzantine bias, basically. And when I say Byzantine, I mean the tradition behind the Textus Receptus. What I have here, everything in red, basically. So red with white letters, that's Byzantine. Red with black letters, that's Textus Receptus.
So now I want to ask about specific like Bible verses. Your website, does it have the option like you click on the notes of a verse to see if something was added later, like say the longer ending of Mark?
Yeah, so that's going to be in the textual apparatus. And if you go to the homepage, what you'll see is basically my roadmap, right? So you're gonna be able to see like, okay, these are the features we have. These are the features in development, right? So the bookmarking, highlighting verses, and this is all going to be free. Lexicons, I'm currently working on integrating Thayer's lexicon. I was recently given a copy of it in XML that I have to parse, but I'm going to try to build this up in the textual apparatus. So the answer to your question is here. So compare Bible versions with ancient manuscripts offering textual variants in plain English in development. So the idea here is basically that, these are sort of things that we don't have yet, right? So this is a screenshot of the real cross Bible beta version with the sort of elements over top of it that we're working on right now with my developers. So the ability to highlight, the ability to have a study pane, like a modal window that opens up and gives you access to cross references between the Old Testament and the New Testament that are going to be flagged, right? Like this is like NTOT flag. Your notes panel, so like your little notepad that you can bring up and take a note on a verse and close it and keep reading. Your lexicons, so you can look things up. So the first lexicon there will be Thayer's, and I'm trying to get bigger and better lexicons. And then the textual apparatus. So again, to your question, the problem is that right now, in most Bible study resources, the textual apparatus is kind of in a black box for people that know the original languages, right? So you're gonna look up. There are starting to appear English text critical editions of the Bible, so you'll actually be able to see textual variants in English. Like that's starting to catch on. It's a very recent development, so that's also the path that I want to take, so that yeah, you should have access to the, if you're looking up this is a textual variant in Luke 4:18. So it says, "Yas estet tu sin detrimentum tingardian," but that means to heal the brokenhearted. So one of the things I struggled with before I learned Greek was that when I was trying to investigate textual variants, they were all in Greek, right? Or if it's in the Old Testament, you might get Hebrew. That all should just be in English. There's no reason why that should just be locked away for scholars in the ivory tower, right? Like that should just be available to everyone. So that's part of my mission, to sort of democratize these resources so that you would have a drop-down menu where you could select, like, I want to see the textual variants in just the Greek. I want to see them in English, or, like whatever, Spanish, French, Italian, Ethiopian. Like I want to localize the software into many, many languages. So the textual apparatus feature is not yet up and running. I am going to start the first one I'm going to launch is going to be based on the Society of Biblical Literature textual apparatus, which is very brief. But the Society of Biblical Literature textual apparatus cites critical editions that are included in Cross Bible. So the cool thing about what I'm working on is that you'll be able to pull up a textual apparatus like the SBL apparatus, and when it cites a textual variant from a Bible, what I want is to be able to click on it and pull up that Bible, right? So you're not just like in the abstract, like, oh, okay, Westcott Hort had that variant. Well, you can just pull up Westcott Hort and look at it and see it for, with your own eyes in the context, the entire paragraph, or with the entire chapter with that textual variant in it. So that's this Bible reader comparison beta version doesn't have all of this stuff on it, but eventually it will. And, this is just showing the timeline that we already have, and you can order a poster. And then the parallels for the cross references is going to be just another tab in the same window where you're going to have your textual apparatus. And here, the goal is to pull up a cross-referencing panel that will allow you to compare the New Testament in any, you're in the Greek version or you're in an English translation. You should be able to compare the cross-reference. Here, the example that I'm showing from the King James, recovering of sight to the blind. If you pull up Isaiah 61:1 in your English translation of the Hebrew Masoretic text, you're not going to find there the exact version that Jesus is reading in the synagogue, right? Because he's saying, as part of the the scripture that he came to fulfill, the prophecy included recovering of sight to the blind. Well, the Hebrew text doesn't have that particular line. It's in the Greek, right? So you should be able. Here, I'm advertising the NETS New English translation of the Septuagint. They haven't yet given me permission to put it on Cross Bible. I'm working on it, but ideally, I would want that. Right now, I have Brenton's English Septuagint. I'm going to try to get Lexham's English Septuagint as well. This is already, Cross Bible is already a very good resource for different versions of the Septuagint that you can compare side by side with the Hebrew and the English. Like most websites out there, Bible websites out there, aren't that interested in providing that kind of functionality. So this is obviously the sort of the differentiator for Cross Bible, is that, like, I want to be able to pull up these cross references, show them side by side, maybe even be able to scroll up and down through the paragraph. But basically, like, if Jesus or Paul or some New Testament author or a character is quoting or referencing the Old Testament and is using the Septuagint, I want to be able to compare the Septuagint. And unfortunately, a lot of Bibles will give you a footnote that just says Septuagint and like doesn't really explain. It doesn't give you the text of the Septuagint to show you, well, how is it different from the Masoretic text? A lot of times there are fundamental differences. If you want to pull up the Hebrew, you're just going to be, you can click here and you can select the Hebrew. I have a demo of this in the very first video I put up on Cross Bible, because this is already a feature I have in my prototype. It's just going to take us time to build and launch this on the actual like live website. And to do that, we're going to really need a lot of support from the community. So that's why, you're helping get the word out, because I really need help just to build this company, really, to get our developers more active, because the people I have working for me right now are just part-time. And there's the gospel synopsis that I'm working on, which is really the foundation of the sort of cross-reference Bible, cross Bible, that I want to basically have the same functionality that you saw on the Bible reader page, where you got these parallels and you can flip them horizontally and vertically. That's what I want to activate for the Synoptic Gospels, so that you could zoom out and see something like that, right? Where you're seeing like the sections of Mark and Luke from a 3,000-foot view, and then drill down and see this kind of like comparison accurate, like this granularity of like, okay, like this is what Matthew is drawing from Mark. This is what Luke is like, matching with Matthew with like color coding and things like that. This is a beast. This is a very, very difficult module to develop. Like the prototype that I have right now isn't quite this dynamic, but I want, these symbols show you that basically I want to be able to drag and drop. If I'm exploring like Matthean priority or whatever, Lucan priority, I want to be able to put Luke on the left-hand side and then, put Mark next to it. Maybe I only want to see Luke and Mark. I want to hide Matthew for a while, right? Or maybe I want to pull up John. Bible software doesn't usually let you do that. And if you go to, a print edition, like, so I have like print synopses, like the one that's based on the RSV. There's like, there are various print synopses that are very, very good. Reuben Swanson is the only one that actually has a synopsis that is horizontally oriented, so you can see sort of line by line, like stacked on top of each other, to see that. That's what really highlights the synoptic parallels. So just like I have in my Bible reader, where I can pull up 2 or 3 different versions, if you can imagine that in this Bible reader, what you're seeing right now, if you imagine that these were the Synoptic Gospels, the idea would basically be able to see these parallels and then flip it on its side and see them line by line. So as far as I'm concerned, like the field of synoptic studies doesn't really have a tool that it needs, in my opinion, to fully just like see these gospels from every single possible angle. And that's what I'm really fighting for, to build build up this product in a way that would serve scholarship for this kind of granular comparison of different Bible versions and different, Bible verses, right? Like, so comparison of the New Testament, the Old Testament, in the, in the Hebrew, in the Greek, in English translations. And then as soon as, like probably the gospel synopsis will be one of the last, or not one of the last, but one of the later features in my roadmap, just because it's a massive undertaking, just from a user interface perspective, and just from a sort of database theory perspective on like kind of how to construct the digital scaffolding where where these gospels can go, so that you can just swap out the versions, right? Like these are just, the parallels are just slots where you can insert the original text, or you can, switch it out with your favorite Bible, whatever Bible I have access to. You can use the NIV, you can use the NASB. They're all going to align the text in the exact same way.
Yeah, that's quite useful for those that are just getting started on the synoptic problem, and when they want to compare Mark's version of a verse and Matthew's version of a verse, or Luke's version of the verse, or look at Matthew and Luke's double tradition, or maybe look at the so-called Mark Q overlaps. And you can arrange it in whatever order you want, as you were just mentioning, right? If somebody believes in the priority of a different gospel over Mark, you can arrange it to your liking. So that's really good. Hey Kip, how you doing? We got Kip Davis in the chat.
Yeah. Hey,
He
Kip.
says, at History Valley, Stephen, how is Lexham's English version of the LXX? And by the way,
Ooh.
LXX is Septuagint, everyone, for those that don't know.
You know, I have to admit that I haven't really even sat down and investigated it. I've looked at it. I don't own a physical copy of it, and I've read about it. You know, like let's see. Actually, okay. Here's the thing. I tend to put that information in. I put a lot of information in the timeline that I don't internalize, and it's kind of like how you don't know the you don't know phone numbers when you have a smartphone, right? Because like you put them all on your phone, and that's what you reference. But let's see if I actually have it here. Do I have Lexham? Yeah. Okay. So Lexham's English Septuagint, first published in 2019, offers a modern literal translation of the ancient Greek scriptures. It's based on Sweets, right? Based on Sweets edition. It maintains the original text's meaning and retains familiar names and places, making it easy to read alongside other English Bibles. The second edition focuses on the text's historical reception, providing greater consistency, spanning 1,304 pages, and is available in both digital and hardcover formats, beautifully typeset in a single column layout. And if I recall, this was basically just I think it was originally just intended as like a reference for people reading the Septuagint who just wanted to quickly, like, you know, it wasn't it was like a module in a digital Bible that ended up becoming an actually like widespread, widely used print edition. If I recall correctly, I don't know. I could be wrong on that, but yeah, the answer to Kip's question is like I don't know, but I have the information here for people who are interested, right next to, so you know, the NETS and then the Eastern Orthodox Bible's version of the LXX English.
So,
other questions?
yeah. So my question is, and you probably already mentioned this earlier, but is Hebrew also like, can somebody compare a Hebrew text on your website of the Bible, the Hebrew?
Yeah, so right now, so like let's just do the NASB, and we got the Westminster Leningrad Codex. You know, I don't know Hebrew personally. It's a shortcoming of mine. It's one of those things I really need to get on. I do encourage people to use Biblingo, even though I'm working on a Greek module on Cross Bible that I eventually am gonna promote. I think Biblingo is a great tool. And if you go onto Biblingo and use the promo code CrossBible10, all one word, I think that gives you a 10% discount because I'm an official affiliate of Biblingo. So I am planning on going through their Hebrew course. I went through their Greek course a few years ago, but I was already kind of, you know, advanced in Greek, and so for me it was review. Even though it's great, I definitely highly recommend Biblingo for Greek. I'm planning on going through the Hebrew program, but I still was able to get the Hebrew Bible into Cross Bible because I had the data already prepared from a couple of different sources. I think the word.net was the big, you know, the guys out there, you know, shout out to Kostas at the word.net. They gave me a lot of really good resources, including this particular edition of the Westminster Leningrad Codex that had all of the versification already done in, you know, in Hebrew. And the interesting thing is that the versification for the WLC, the Westminster Leningrad Codex, is slightly different from Protestant Bibles, and I didn't realize the extent to which that was the case until I actually had to integrate it into Cross Bible. But the Hebrew text sometimes divides the chapters in different, you know, like the end of a chapter might be like 53 here, but then you know, it'll be chapter 6:1 or something in the Hebrew text. So one of the things that I've done in Cross Bible for every single Bible that I've integrated into here is I've normalized the versification so that the text always aligns. And in the case of Protestant Bibles, that tends to not be so much of an issue. But like, for example, if you go to like Revelation 12, right? Like, just if you play around with this in any Bible, you'll see like the NASB compared to like the King James. Let's see. So like some Bibles include verse 18, which says either, and the dragon stood on the sand of the seashore, or, and I stood upon the sand of the seashore. Sometimes it's the dragon, sometimes it's I, depending on the textual variant. Well, in some Bibles, this is verse 18. In other Bibles, this is verse 13:1. Cross Bible is basically adopted its own internal system of versification so that no matter what Bible you are looking at, and this applies to the Hebrew Masoretic text, or like, for the Old Testament and the Septuagint as well. The Septuagint verse numbers and chapter numbers are very often, especially in the Psalms, drastically different from that of the Hebrew. But in Cross Bible, I have meticulously gone through, and at least, I think it's there could be some mistakes, but I've meticulously gone through and normalized the versification. So like if you're looking at the Psalms, like let's go look at the Psalms and pull up, let's see, Brenton's, let's just say Brenton's English Septuagint, and compare it to Brenton's Greek, and then like pull up the Westminster Leningrad Codex, right? Boom. So here, let's say, like, I don't know, just pick a random Psalm and you're probably going to see differences, right? So here you're looking at Psalm 30 in the Septuagint. That's going to match 31 in the Leningrad Codex. So these texts are always going to be in alignment, even though the verse numbers are off. And what I found frustrating using a lot of other Bible study resources is that if your goal is to compare the Hebrew to the English to the Greek, if you are looking at all those languages, if you're just querying a database that's giving you verses that are numbered, and that number is the main identifier, it's all going to be out of whack, right? You really can't line up the text very easily. And I was on the phone with like Logos Bible software support, being like how can I fix this? How can I fix these Bibles, right? And get them to line up so I can compare like verse, like, shouldn't this be something people do? Like, why isn't this available? And it wasn't. It's just not something, it's not a thing. And so I decided to make it a thing. That was sort of part of the, one of my motivations in making Cross Bible, because I just felt like, a lot of the Bible study tools out there were just either super overly complicated or fundamentally just kind of flawed in just the way that, we've been organizing our Bibles over the last few centuries.
Kip says, I'm planning to teach Hebrew in February. Maybe you should take my course, Stephen.
Ooh, yes. I will get in on your Hebrew course for sure.
Does your website also cover textual corruption and interpolations?
Well, I mean, you're going to find textual variance between, like the biggest thing, like, okay, if you're looking in Mark and you're comparing the New American Standard to the King James, you're going to see right away, like, the critical text is going to say, as it is written in Isaiah the prophet. And when you look over at the King James, it's going to be as it is written in the prophets, right? So as I mentioned, there's going to be a button here that's going to pull up the textual variant. A lot of Bibles include this in the footnotes. So I think the NASB already has a footnote that explains this. I just need to parse. I still have some work to do to include the footnotes, but Cross Bible is going to have its own sort of internal footnotes that are not going to be dependent on the information on the individual Bibles. So when I incorporate the New English translation, which I've already, I have permission to use the NET1, the New English Translation version 1, which I'll try to get onto the platform pretty soon. But I'd like to get version 2, because version 2 has the full notes that are very, very helpful that I want to also incorporate. So that is going to give you the metadata, the additional like button here that you're going to press to pull up and see like those textual variants and explore them. For now, you just have to have a keen eye to be able to spot the difference between this, and then, go back to the Greek, right? So like the thing that's cool, like let's say I'm going to pull up this comparison. What I could do is I could say, okay, so I want the NASB here, and the NASB is, see if I can keep this wide. Okay, I guess it flipped. The NASB is here on the left. Well, the NASB is based on the critical text, so I could select the SBL, and then I can see basically in the left-hand column, I have the NASB, then I have the text that it's based on, right? And then in the third column, I could set the King James. And then in the fourth column, I have 5 here. In the fourth column, I can select the some version of the Textus Receptus, like Beza, for example. So here, I basically have a text, and then I have the text that is based on, and I have another text and the text that is based on. I actually have a 5th column over here, which shouldn't be the case, but I think it's a bug. I knew I was bound to uncover a bug on the stream. Okay, boom. So here I got the 4. So I have English, the Greek that it's based on, English, the Greek that it's based on. So here, if you know Greek, this is meaningful. If you don't, it might not be. But you have, entis prophetes in the prophets versus in Isaiah the prophet, ento Isaiah to propheti. So this does give you the evidence you need to show, yes, like the you phrase it as textual corruption, textual variants are present, but they're present in those versions. Now, if anybody is interested in that particular topic, the blog section does have, I do have 2 videos in my documentary series on the history of the Bible. One of them, this is actually my most popular video, is the King James one, because I have a lot of King James onlyists who come in and like to comment on this video about how the King James is the best Bible in the world. And so this goes into the whole, a very sort of layman friendly version of this history of the Byzantine text and of the Textus Receptus. And then if you go to the article that I have, or the video that I have on the history of the critical text, you can actually see here, like, these are all the verses, for example, that are missing that are omitted from the critical text, because scholars have concluded that they are not original, and then sort of reasons for those variants. And then if you click on any of these, it's going to take you to the Bible reader, jump to that verse, and show you, okay, King James has this verse, and then the New American Standard is empty, right? So you can go back to the blog, and you can play around with this to sort of see, okay, boom, that's missing there too. So eventually this is all going to be built into the textual apparatus, so you actually will be able to come here, and when you see, oh, okay, there's a missing verse here in let's like pick the New American Standard. So you will be able very, very soon, this is going to be in the next couple of months, hopefully, be able to pull up at least the NASB footnotes, because the footnotes are going to explain why that verse is missing. But eventually I want the textual apparatus too to be up and running, so that no matter what Bible you're reading, you're going to have access to the exact same information in Cross Bible's own proprietary textual apparatus that will be translated, hopefully, eventually, into like every single language in the world, right? Like that's the goal. But baby steps, Greek, Hebrew, English, and then, major world languages, and then minority languages, if we can afford it.
Kip says, do you think Alman Hillman will become a cross-Bible user, Stephen?
Yes. I think even a quack like Dr. David Hillman will eventually be an avid user of Cross Bible, because frankly, look, I see a lot of people that do streams, like let's say, like somebody's on the Danny Jones podcast, like we've seen that a lot recently, where the Bible website that is super well indexed on Google, I mean, the best, the king, right? It's Bible Gateway. So everybody's using Bible Gateway. So you've probably used it on History Valley, right? Like somebody brings up a Bible verse. When you Google any Bible verse, Bible Gateway is going to pop up. They're a multi-page application. They've been around since the 90s. They're very well indexed, and they have like 80 million monthly users. But I'm not even going to go to it. I don't want to say anything bad about Bible Gateway. I love Bible Gateway. Like, I've been using Bible Gateway for a really long time. And obviously it's the inspiration behind Cross Bible, because the flaws of Bible Gateway are the inspiration behind Cross Bible, because on Bible Gateway you can't line up the verses like this. Like sometimes you can, but a lot of the times, because of the way that they've grouped together the verses in paragraphs and pericopes. You just your eyes have to do a lot of work to go back and forth. And and they serve ads, and they have like a little side panel with all of the commentaries and the things that like you got to move things around and zoom in, and just like I'm trying to build an interface that's going to be much sort of, I mean, as you can see right now, I don't have ads, right? So this is very clean. I could zoom in. So like so my goal would be moving forward that like, you, Jacob, and Kip, and Mike Jones, and Mike Winger, like, I don't know, like everybody who's in this space, who's using Bible software to illustrate something, like at some point that you want to compare different versions, or you just want to pull up a version. You just want to pull up a Bible and read from it. I want to facilitate that in a way that's going to be visually appealing with a nice, readable font, big size, without ads popping up all over the place. And, so that people who are streaming, including Alan Hillman, could pull something up. Because when I see, all of this recent commotion with people going on, the Danny Jones podcast and like pulling up the Bible, they pull up Bible Gateway and they're like, oh, what is that in the Greek? Like, man, it hurts my soul. Like, I really want them to just like go on to Cross Bible, click here, select a Greek version. Oh, sorry, it's not going to give you the Genesis isn't here, but okay, like Mark 14, like let's pull up Mark 14, right? Like, that's what everybody's talking about right now is Mark 14. Boom, there it is. The NASB, Nestle's Greek. I think that's the one that they typically pull. Let's say SBL, right? Like, boom, SBL. This is just so like my mission will be accomplished when people just start doing this more often, because I'm tooting my own horn here, but like it's the simplicity that matters, right? Like all you want to just do is line up the Hebrew, the Greek and the English, right? Or maybe you don't want it in these columns, right? Maybe you want to see like this, right? You want to see like, oh, okay, Jesus, boom, leave. You can see how each word is translated. That's really the goal, right? So like, if all of my YouTuber friends and everybody on the YouTube family, it's just like, hey, Neil's already been on stream using Cross Bible. This is I don't necessarily need people to plug it officially, right? It's not like I'm not seeking out I can't afford to like pay people to like advertise Cross Bible on their channels. And when I reach out to people, everybody's like, I reach out to various people in the Christian Bible study space on YouTube, and a lot of the responses I get are like, oh, I don't do paid advertisement. I don't do, no, don't offer me any money. And I'm just like, no, I'm just trying to get, share with you this cool new tool that I hope people will genuinely be interested in using and improving and giving me feedback. If anybody was using, one of these big Bible software platform or Bible website platforms, and wished it did something that it didn't do, like I did for years, if you like emailed the webmaster, the owner or something of one of these big platforms, they would just tell you to pound sand, right? Like I would respond to you and be like, oh yeah, that's in the works. Or, like this is that, I want this to be a community driven thing where people can actually provide feedback and drive the development of the new platform from scratch. Like that's the vision, right? Like to really build it for the market, like let the market determine what features are useful. And maybe they don't want, maybe they want to be able to hit a button, like ideally, I mean, like I have a big vision, right? Like I want to be able to just drag and drop this bottom text up to the top here, just flip it, right? Like right now you can only do that in the vertical panel. But I just, I was just frustrated with the current state of how this works, right? Like, okay, I can move the Greek over to the left, but yeah, I just feel like we're stuck in the 90s, man. Like the way that this works online right now on all the Bible study websites, I feel like we're just fresh off of the innovation of just digitizing Bibles. Like, hallelujah, we have the Bible in digital format. It's in your pocket. It's like lighting up your faces in the pews on Sundays. Like that's great, but we gotta there needs to be more developments in the sort of user experience of navigating the Bible, especially because when you get to the point where you're facilitating the comparison between two different versions, and if I have an interface that lets somebody like compare the King James to the NASB verse by verse, that's opening up Pandora's box for people to be like, especially, if you're a Christian and you're devoted to this text in a special way, you're going to be confused by these variants. Maybe it's going to be challenging to your faith, or maybe you just are approaching it from a scholarly perspective and you want to know, well, which of these readings is more likely the original and which was more likely a copyist error or something. And I think that's what I want to bring everybody together on the platform, from all of these different backgrounds to create something that's going to be useful for everyone, not just scholars, but also lay people.
Kip says, fun fact, I got a ride with Steven from Jacob's Hotel back to the conference in San Diego during SBL. And here's a fun fact, another fun fact. Steven and I recorded with Dennis McDonald a hit piece on Amon Hillman, and I look forward to getting that out there eventually.
Yeah,
and go ahead.
I'm working on my own actually right now for anybody who is interested in that topic. If anybody is fortunate enough to not know what we're talking about or who we're talking about, that's good for you. But if you haven't been under a rock, then stay tuned. This will be there's a video I'm cutting that Derek is going to put on Myth Vision podcast. So this is the official announcement. It will be out by the end of the year for sure. Hopefully by Christmas, but it's massive. I mean, just last night I rendered 2.5 hours.
Wow.
But I'm trying to cut it down, and there's a lot of fat to trim, because in a response video where you're playing somebody and pausing and responding, Dr. Hillman meanders a lot. Let's put it that way. Because I'm using I'm using clips from his channel and from different channels, and just getting into the sources in the Greek. It's not a personal attack in that sense. It's not, it's a hit piece purely on the basis of the text and what it says versus what he says it says.
Right.
Which is based a lot in right here, right? We have Mark 14 right in front of us.
Yeah, that's another reason why I brought it up, because I'm like, oh, this is a perfect moment. We got Mark 14 in front of us.
Yeah, we do. I want to talk about Mark.
Skeptical Solomon says, this is really cool. Just registered, and I still love the Bible as an atheist.
Yeah, and I there's no prejudice. Look, Cross Bible is a Christian organization. We are a Christian-friendly YouTube channel, but we are open to everyone, and I think there's a real renaissance happening in the YouTube space right now, where I think there's a lot of obviously there's a lot of mudslinging and there's a lot of toxicity, and and I'm already getting crazy comments, especially from Ammonites, Hillman followers who are like coming into my chat like, Hebrew's fake, and like, oh, Greek is superior. Like, okay, I try to respond to everybody. Like, I do appreciate the engagement. Yeah, but yeah, it's but again, it's like I'm trying to provide these resources for people to investigate the stuff on their own and come to their own conclusions, right? Because it's like the biblical text is sort of like has its own sort of built-in commentary, right? Like, you don't necessarily need a secondary source. You could just go see what the text says for yourself.
Well, yeah, I get crazy comments myself, and not just from some Ammonites. You got some people out there saying some really crazy shit, like Rome that didn't exist, or Josephus somehow didn't exist. I'm serious. I get comments like that. It's kind of disturbing. I have no idea where people come up with ideas like that.
I think, everybody thinks that everybody didn't exist at some point. It's just like nobody exists in history.
I wonder when someone's going to say that I'm an interpolation, but anyway.
Yeah, you and I don't exist either. We're AI.
Yeah. So kind of the recap from the beginning of the stream. When someone goes to your website and they're trying to look around, trying to say, where should I begin? There's so much tools here. Where would you suggest someone should actually start and to start learning how to use your website properly?
Yeah, well, look, if anybody is generous enough to, register and hit me with a $5 tip or something like that, the billing section is obviously much appreciated if anybody can support what we're doing, both on the YouTube side, if you like our documentaries and our content, or you like the features, and if you like the roadmap, if you go here and you look at and you read what we're working on, and you're like, it would be really cool. I like this website, but I really wish it had this. Or, when I was talking with Dan McClellan about it at SBL, and he was like, I really want a good, strong, like powerful search feature, right? If you have semantic search and it's going to give me, I'm going to be able to search for Greek and Hebrew terms, and it's going to pull up all those terms in that Bible. If we don't have that yet, right? We just launched. So obviously we rely on, we're crowdfunded, so we rely on support in order to get this stuff going. I would say the first thing really is just this call to action is just boom, Genesis 1:1, like jump into it, jump into the NASB is our default for now. We're going to switch out the defaults to include other versions, but yeah, just start reading. I think I can tell that most people are bouncing in and out. Like, I think a lot of the time what you want is you want to jump in and like just look at, like, I don't know, like whatever, Numbers 6. Like you're gonna be going to Cross Bible because you're wanting to see, you're wanting to look up a verse, right? Like you want to see what like Numbers 6 says. And I think a lot of the times, what I've been using it for is if I'm on Facebook or I'm in like a discussion with somebody about something the Bible says, like if it, and I want to show, like, I want to, especially if somebody's making a claim about what it says in Greek, I want to be able to go in and say, like, okay, like we're talking about the Hillman thing. Like if somebody's talking about what, let's pull up the, Septuagint, right? So somebody's saying something is said in the Septuagint. I want to be able to pull up a version that has the English on one side and the Greek on another, or maybe I want to flip it here so it's like, like that. Like I want to show someone this on social media. Well, right now the URL has number 66 with the exact parallel in it. So I can go in here, I can, I don't think you can see my URL. I can copy the URL string. Eventually I'll probably have like a share button or something, like a Facebook icon or something that'll drop it into Facebook. But if you're going to be sharing, if you're going to be sharing a version comparison, or even just one version of a verse, it would be great if people would engage with Cross Bible and construct their own, table, their own grid of like the different versions, like maybe English and Hebrew, maybe a couple different English versions, to illustrate some point about what it is they're arguing about on social media, or just like having a cordial conversation, hopefully. I want to build up more features for social media engagement. And then obviously the blog is big because some people prefer to read blogs, right? Some people, and you could really go in and open up this blog post. You can play the video, listen to the audio, and read along, right? Like that's or you could just jump over to Facebook from here. But the blog is really, every time I drop a new YouTube video, which right now I'm working on the Hillman piece for Myth Vision podcast. After that, I'm probably going to do some translation spotlights, since I now have the NASB and I'm about to get the NIV up there. I'll probably do an NASB translation spotlight highlighting pros and cons, and NIV. Those are all going to end up going on the blog. And if you're registered, you will eventually, I don't have this enabled right now, but I will have a comment feature that will allow you to scroll down to the bottom of the blog and tell me Hebrew sucks or whatever, whatever you want to, you can currently comment on the YouTube videos, but I also want to, develop the blog feature so that there's more community engagement. When you're registered, you have to be registered first, right? But if you're registered, you're authenticated, you'll be able to engage on the blog. And then I strongly encourage people to go onto the timeline. This is really, I spent way more time on this timeline than I did on the Bible reader feature. And more people are using the Bible reader feature because I just don't think they know about the timeline. We went over the New Testament side of things in the stream. I also have like, I mean, this is really cool layout of the sort of the grouping of the Hebrew Bible text along with like the Deuterocanonical over here and how that kind of branches out. And you can come over here and see the source text. Like this is like basically, you know, hypothetical 5th to 4th century Proto-Masoretic, Proto-Septuagint Hebrew sources, Proto-Samaritan, their common source. You can go through and just sort of read more about the, you know, about the Septuagint, about the different recensions of the Greek Old Testament, like Aquila, Symmachus, you know, the Hexapla, Hesychius, and Lucian. And go, you know, you can explore. Okay, there's like the Papyrus 967. And actually, Kip, thank you very much for helping with this. Like Kip also gave me a thorough review of this and was like, "Hey, you're missing the Nash Papyrus." I think I put that in there thanks to Kip's recommendation. Obviously, there's the Judean Desert Scrolls, Dead Sea Scrolls. You know, I have just the top of the timeline. You know, I got the Jewish Talmud. And then the sort of the Hebrew Masoretic text tradition, the Aleppo Codex, Codex Tassoon. And I do have a digital edition of the Aleppo Codex, which is missing pieces. It doesn't, I'm working right now with my limited Hebrew, which I hope to improve soon, to align the Aleppo Codex with our versification system so that you'll be able to see the Westminster Leningrad Codex right here alongside the Aleppo Codex. And then maybe be able to pull up the Greek or pull up the English next to it. That's also in the works right now, but it's just super time consuming. And then you can see, you know, obviously the critical editions of the Hebrew Bible over here. So yeah, explore the timeline. Like I said, read the notes for whatever, you know, whatever piques your interest. Just always remember to hit escape to get back to the overall timeline.
And your YouTube channel is also called Cross Bible.
Yeah,
And,
it's Cross Bible Official, and you can get to it through the website. So if you go to the website, you go to the blog. I really need to get my watch hours up. I think I'm getting close to the YouTube partnership program, but you can jump to YouTube from the website. I don't know if it's tracking this tab, but basically, yeah, you can go to YouTube, or you can just stay in the website and read, or you can play the audio. I mean, I don't have a really regular cadence with my YouTube videos, mainly because this video right here is actually partially motivated by the research I was doing into Hillman's claims about the Septuagint and the Hebrew, and which was first, and which language has more words, and whether or not Hebrew was fake, and when it died, and when, you know, like all this stuff is in here. This was many months of research that I poured into this, and then also a lot of fairly elaborate editing on this video to, you know, basically it's, you know, I built separate timelines that in addition to my timeline of the Bible that I have on Cross Bible, I built timelines specifically to illustrate the things that I was talking about in this video that broke down the entire history of English, Hebrew, and Greek. It's like extremely time consuming to you know, put this kind of stuff together. So if anybody's super nerdy and interested in this sort of thing, please go through and give it a thorough watch, and, you know, help me get the watch hours up if you find this kind of stuff interesting.
Hi, Fish and Tie says, I have 15K followers on TikTok. I will spread the word about Cross Bible.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah,
Awesome.
and I do have if you go to Cross Bible and you scroll down to the footer, I have my links here in the footer too for YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, for as long as TikTok's still available, obviously in the United States, and you know, Instagram and Twitter. I've been experimenting with taking my longer form content and breaking it up into shorts and putting it on TikTok and Instagram. Obviously, there are some people that have followed that model very well. But yeah, follow me on TikTok. I will start putting more stuff up on like TikTok and Instagram, and I'm going to make more shorts. And, you know, it's just I have to get myself to the point where, you know, with the help of, you know, the community, you know, getting more crowdfunding to be able to delegate more to my developers so that I can focus more on the YouTube side of things. Cause I have scripts for like over 100 YouTube videos that are all along the lines of like, the topics of textual criticism. I have a lot of stuff. I mean, you and I, Jacob, we've personally been involved in a lot of discussions around, just whatever things, the weird stuff like mythicism, Israel only, full preterism, like all the stuff that like, we've been, stuff that we've been debunking, stuff that we've been intrigued by, like, different ideas that we've tossed around in the arena. And I have a lot of notes and I plan on doing a lot of deep dive videos into all of those topics, especially focused on the Greek, because that's really where, like I feel like I have something to bring to the table. So I would love to be able to carve out more time to produce more of this content on YouTube and break it up into shorts that will be engaging on platforms like TikTok. And so yeah, people can follow on TikTok, Instagram, and I'm learning to navigate that side of social media, but it takes time. And working on the Bible software really hands-on and rolling up my sleeves and getting Thayer's lexicon and everything. It's just it's a massive time dump. So the more support I can get to help sort of boost up my team, the better, because we're really working on some cool stuff.
And I just want to remind everybody real quick, the links will be in the description below to the Cross Bible website and the YouTube channel, and also in the pinned comment.
And there's no Patreon. Yeah, no Patreon. It's just if you register, there is a billing page, and so the billing page will let you subscribe for whatever you can afford to pitch in. I also have a support us button that will take you to a payment page if you want to just kick me a couple bucks or something like that. Whatever you can do. If not, like and subscribe on YouTube, doesn't cost anything.
All right. Thank you for joining me today, Stephen.
All right, thanks for having me, man. It's been a pleasure.
And likewise.
Hello viewers, thanks for watching this video from the History Valley YouTube channel. Please don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell. And if any of you wish to further support this channel, please consider checking out this channel's Patreon page and becoming a patron. And or donate through PayPal or through Super Chat during your live stream. Thank you.